Hey everyone, welcome to today's webinar. My name is Kai Burival. I'm a senior applications engineer here at Enscape Chaos, and with me is my great colleague Josh Radel.
Hey everybody.
Always by my side. And today we are gonna tell you about Enscape for SketchUp on Windows. However, if you're using Enscape on a different platform, on a different design application, or if you're planning to do so, don't worry. You should get, or almost everything we're gonna cover today is applicable to all design applications that you can use Enscape with. Whether you're on Windows and Mac, if you're using Revit, SketchUp, Rhino, Archicad, Vectorworks, all of that you'll definitely draw from this presentation. We're gonna cover the basics. It's a beginner's webinar, so we'll try to cover almost all parts that everything that you need to know about Enscape, from what it is about to installation, materials. We'll cover a little bit of lights in SketchUp, which if you're using Enscape with a different design application, you can just use the onboard lights of that design application, but SketchUp doesn't have any native lights, so we're going to cover that a little bit. We'll cover exports, virtual reality, and what's new with Enscape 4.0. And we'll have a live Q&A in the end, so if you have any questions after our presentation, we'll be happy to answer those right away. But first of all, Josh, why don't you tell people about what Enscape is about in the first place?
Yeah, sure. All right. So for those that don't know what Enscape is a real-time rendering, visualization, and virtual reality plugin that integrates into your favorite AEC design and visualization workflows. So it gives architects, engineers, designers the power to create realistic renderings based on their existing 3D models. You can even use it so it's like a real-time window into your model. So you can use it for every stage of the design process, and then be able to create videos, panoramas, images, and VR experiences to keep everybody up to date. Like I said, it works with Revit, Rhino, SketchUp, Archicad, and Vectorworks. For Mac, SketchUp, Archicad, Vectorworks, and Rhino as well. So, quick overview of what Enscape is. Should we jump on in and check out what it can do?
Let's have a look at the installation. So you see my screen, and I have the Enscape 4.0 installer on my desktop here. You can get this installer either on the Enscape website, www.enscape3d.com, and you can apply for a trial there, 14-day free trial for you to try it out. If you're an existing customer, you can also click the About button in the Enscape user interface to go to the downloads page and always get the latest version of Enscape. So it's really, really simple. The entire process is simple. We literally just have to run this exe file and make sure our machine meets the system requirements, of course, for Enscape, and B, that the design application is closed. So I will be using this with SketchUp. SketchUp is closed, so I can run the installer. And I have Enscape already installed. 1 second, there we go. So it says Enscape already installed on this machine. And in this case, what it asked me to do is to be able to override the existing installation we have. I will need to start it as an administrator. So depending on your setup, you can, you can do it a different way. You don't have to run it as administrator if you're installing it locally for the first time. You can, of course, also just remove it if you have an older version and don't want to run it as administrator. So you can remove Enscape and install it fresh like this. Then we just, click installation. We just follow the steps in this installer. And once it's finished, let's wait for a couple of seconds. Once it's finished, we're going to open up SketchUp. And we will see Enscape as a toolbar inside of our SketchUp interface. Or we might have to enable it first. We're gonna check that in a second. And there we are. Enscape is ready, so we can just launch SketchUp. There we go. SketchUp 2023 in my case. Let's wait for it to load. We've also not picked the smallest, the tiniest sample project today. So let's see, where's SketchUp? There it is. We didn't pick the smallest sample project, but it's a nice one. My second screen here, there we go. You can, by the way, download this sample project from our website. We have a free sample projects part of our website. You can scroll all the way down to the bottom. There you'll see the link to the free sample projects. And this project, by the way, is a part of our basic training course that we have just recently published. One training course for each design application on each platform. So that's 9 training courses in total. Each of them are between 2 and 3 hours in duration. So if you really want to know everything that there is to know about Enscape, you can watch those. And using this sample project, you can follow along the steps and try it yourself. Then again, we don't want to rush ahead. First of all, we're going to show you the basic steps today in the sample project, and you don't have to follow along. The first thing we want to do, though, is we want to make sure we see the Enscape toolbar. So we could go here to extensions and check out Enscape and control it from here if we wanted to, but it's way easier if we right-click somewhere up here. We can enable Enscape, the Enscape toolbar, and right away we'll see it up here in our SketchUp interface. Of course, we could drag it and move it somewhere else if we want to. The most important button, however, is the Start Enscape button that, as you may have guessed already, that will launch Enscape. And once again, it's launching on my second screen here. So let me just wait for it to load. I have it here. I have a custom loading screen right now. We might, or I think I'm gonna even cover how to set up your own loading screen and your own. If you want to, you can name the Enscape window, and you can also add an overlay, a user interface overlay, so you can totally customize the Enscape experience. How exactly, we're gonna cover that later on. But as a first step, let's check out the Enscape window that has currently loaded our sample project here. Let me also reset my loading screen here. And there we go, and it has opened our scene as we have it in SketchUp. So right now we see the visual settings have been set up in a certain way. Let me just reset those to default so we can see what Enscape looks like directly out of the box. And in this sample project, we've already set up some materials. We see our nice water in the middle. We see our assets, 3D assets that come with Enscape. We're going to cover all of that in the later parts of this presentation. But first of all, let me just align Enscape and SketchUp side by side here, because we want to talk about the synchronization between SketchUp and Enscape. And the main thing I want you to know, I want you to learn from this, is that almost everything you're doing in SketchUp is being synchronized to Enscape right away. So first of all, we can synchronize the camera view. That's the synchronize button up here. And that will simply synchronize the camera from SketchUp into Enscape. So if you don't want to get familiar with a new way of movement, you don't have to. You can just continue moving in SketchUp, and as you see, Enscape will simply follow immediately. I'll disable it though, because I am way more comfortable navigating directly in Enscape. If you want to know how you can navigate in Enscape, you always have this question mark in the top right corner. You can also press the H key, H for help, and that will give you an overview of the various controls you can use to navigate your camera and to change the daytime and things like that directly in Enscape. But then again, we're talking about synchronization here. So you've seen that you can synchronize the camera. We can also, for example, synchronize our shadows. So if I change the time of day in SketchUp, you will see that it does change in Enscape as well. Same for the time of year. And if we wanted to geolocate, for example, our SketchUp model, you can imagine that it will also take the sun angle correctly depending on the location we are. So the sun angle is being taken correctly. The same thing is true with views, for example. We have a couple of views up here scenes in SketchUp. We have those up here. And as you see, or if we switch through these, we can also open them directly in Enscape if we want to, using the view management. That would be the F key, where we can also cycle through the same scenes or views. And if we wanted to, we could also save visual settings presets to be displayed when those views are selected, or daytimes, etc. So we can combine a lot of functionality, a lot of information with our individual scenes. Of course, those are called scenes in SketchUp, but the same thing is true for Rhino and Revit and Vectorworks and Archicad. So that is all identical. Let me think if I've missed something. Geolocation, we've covered that. The same thing is true in Revit and Rhino. If you can geolocate your model, Enscape will display the sun angle correctly. Then other things like visibility settings in general. If we say we want to hide something, for example, in a certain view, you see it's gonna update in Enscape right away as well. If I press Control Z, it's gonna get right back. And of course, we can combine that also with scene visibility settings. In Revit, you can even combine things like design options and construction phases with your views and so on and so on. But let's take away that information for now. That is the principle of Enscape. If you do something in your host application, it is going to be reflected in Enscape right away, unless you have disabled this button here, the Live Updates button. If you uncheck this button in the top left corner, then your updates will no longer update to Enscape, will no longer move over to Enscape unless or until you enable this again, which helps if you have tons of small updates you want to perform. One, or maybe the most important part working with Enscape or with any visualization software in general is detail. Whenever we want something to be convincing, to be visually interesting, it's gonna get down to detail, and there are various ways to add your scene or to fill your scene with detail. One way is our sky, for example. One way are our assets that we're going to cover later on. But one really, really important way for you to know about is materials. And Josh, you're going to tell us more about materials with Enscape. Am I right?
Yep, correct. All right. So one of the biggest things that help produce a more photorealistic image is, and really things that help just bump up the image quality in general is materials. So we can see here, by default, Enscape is going to take all of your host design applications materials and read them. So we can see we have our SketchUp materials here. So now if I want to kind of further update those, what I can do is I can utilize our material library here. So let's go, say we want to change the materials on the siding here of our building. So we have our material library. So this is where we have over 400 pre-built PBR ready to use materials. Now what you can do is pick any one of these materials that you want. Let's pick any one of them that we want. We can pick multiple different ones. We could favorite them as well, and they'll show up in our favorites category up top here. And what you're going to do is simply hit import selection. And what that's going to do is import that into your host design application's material structure. So in this case, SketchUp. So it created a SketchUp material for us. And then we can apply that like we normally would any other SketchUp material, or again, say Revit, any other Revit material, or any other host design applications materials. So that's really one of the benefits of being a direct plugin to SketchUp, Revit, all the other ones. It works seamlessly. But now what if we want to further edit those? We can further edit those by going and edit them in the host design application's native material editor. Or we do have a very cool way as well. That's what we call our Enscape material editor here. So it's this little checkered ball up inside your toolbar. Now what this is going to do is show you all the different materials that you have inside of your design project. So what we can do if we want to further edit these materials, we can just eyedropper tool or select those materials, and we're going to pull up with this list here. Now this is really cool because if we want to preview what some different materials are going to look like as well before we import them into our project, we can simply hover over the material that we want, click these three little dots, and we can hit replace with Enscape material. And what this is going to do is give me my material library again. So now what I can do is start trying out different types of materials as well. And again, I can choose any one of them that I want, but this is a really cool way where we can preview what these materials are going to look like. So any object inside of your design application that has those materials applied to it will show that new material as well. Let's settle on my wood beams, so I can hit replace. And what that's going to do is simply replace the material properties. It's not going to replace the naming convention or anything like that inside of your host design applications. And again, now we can go further edit this if we need to, all the while seeing what those changes are looking like in real time. So again, that's like I was talking about, that's where that real power comes in of Enscape. Any changes you're making, you're going to instantly see them reflected in real time. So there we go. Another really cool thing that we can do with this material editor is we can have the ability to create water, grass, self-illuminating materials as well. We won't dive super deep into these. This is just a basic video as well, or a basic training. So we're not going to dive super deep into those, but just know you can also load in different material maps through here as well into the different slots by just clicking the folder and loading in those material maps. You can access the different types of Enscape materials up top here just by selecting the material that you want and clicking the drop down and telling it to become whatever type of material that you want. And then we can see, you know, for water, we have different properties for water to control that. Same for grass, self-illumination, things like that. So, and also, best of all, if you set up a material and you really like it and you want to save it for further use, you can export these materials as an Enscape material package. And then what you can do is batch import those, and they will be imported into your material library inside your host design application for use in future projects, and it'll save all the different material properties as well. So that's a little bit about materials. Okay.
Cool.
I think you're up next.
Thanks a lot. Yeah. Something that's probably equally important as materials for detail and for the design of your scene are lights. Not talking about natural lights, that would be our sun, wherever it is right now. It's probably hidden behind that cloud. I hope I didn't make anyone dizzy here. Not natural lights, but artificial lights is the topic that we want to talk about now. Let's switch to night, and you will see that our scene is nicely lit. Once again, if you're using Enscape with any other design application, you can just continue working as you're used to. Enscape supports your onboard lighting system. We're going to spend a little bit of time to cover the artificial light system that we have added to SketchUp, because SketchUp doesn't have its own native onboard system. However, for anyone who's working with Enscape, one question that we often get is, how can we enable lights during daytime? And the answer to that is just make them bright enough. If they're brighter, or if they're bright enough that they're overblowing the sun, essentially, then you will see them as you see it here during day as well. And we even have in our visual settings that we're going to cover in a little more detail later on. In our visual settings, we have in the atmosphere tab an artificial light brightness slider that will allow you to control all of the artificial lights at once, so you don't have to go into every single one and change these things. In terms of SketchUp, so we're gonna cover the artificial lights section that we provide in SketchUp, and you can find it under this plus in the Enscape objects window. Let's open that, open on my second screen. Here we go. And you'll see we have spherical spotlights, linear lights, rectangular lights, and disk lights. So the basic light forms that you know from other softwares, maybe. Right now, with Enscape 4.0, we are experiencing a little bit of a bug with SketchUp here. So it is possible for SketchUp to crash when we place one of those lights. I hope it's not gonna happen when I'm gonna show it to you in a second. If yes, I'm gonna have to restart SketchUp, so it pays off to save the file before placing a light. Once we have placed the light, we could copy and paste it all we want. That will not cause a crash. So that way we can safely place a number of lights in our scene. But we just want to place one light, and it's going to be a spotlight, just to highlight how these things work in SketchUp. To place this light in SketchUp, we have to click 4 times. We have clicked once the surface that we use as a base to place the light source based off, and we'll click once to select where to base the light target off. Just try it once. Keep in mind that you have to click 4 times, and I'm sure it's gonna make sense in no time. We don't see the light right now, and the reason for that is it's currently at 1 candela luminous intensity. We can, of course, dial that up to any number we want, and at some point we're gonna see our spotlight, as you see here. By the way, one important tip when working with lights is, by default, again in the Enscape visual settings, auto exposure is enabled. That means Enscape is simulating the human eye. So if our scene gets dark, it will brighten up the scene. If our scene gets bright, it will darken the scene. So that means if you increase the brightness of your light, it will first appear really, really bright, and then it's gonna get normalized again. I see some people getting confused by that and getting into a kind of power struggle with their lights. Just keep in mind, if you want to have a fixed brightness, you can disable auto exposure, and that way you can see essentially the scene the way it truly is. Just so you know, auto exposure is enabled, so if your lights don't seem to get brighter, the camera is probably just adapting to it. We can also change the beam angle here, these kinds of things, really nice. If we wanted to change the color of our light, once again, in other design applications, you probably have your own settings for that. In SketchUp, you can simply pick a material, a color, and just paint the Enscape object that you have in your SketchUp scene with the color of your choice, and it's gonna illuminate, it's gonna shine in that color. One more thing that I want to cover, I mean, we've covered these basic light shapes, spherical, which also serve as point lights, by the way, linear, spotlights, rectangular, and disk lights. The spotlight type has this IES file folder button here that is really, really useful. If you come from Revit, for example, you might know IES files. IES files, just for explanation, let me open this website here, ieslibrary.com. Someone has gathered thousands of those IES files here that you can use directly for free. What does an IES file do? It shapes the light cone, essentially. You can see it right here. Because with real life lights, your light is rarely gonna spread equally into the given radius, but it's rather being shaped, it's being distorted, it's being refracted by the light bulb, for example, these kinds of things. And you can simulate that really easily using these IES lights. Just to highlight how that works, I'm going to download IES, and let's go back to our SketchUp overview. Let's open the light menu here, the Enscape object menu for this light. While it's selected, it's going to open with that light selected, and I'm going to pick IES file, and let's go to my downloads folder. There we go. And I'm going to pick the file that I've just selected, and it first set my luminous intensity back to 1. Let's dial it back up, and we will see that now our light has a more interesting shape, I would say. I hope it's visible. We can also maybe we can just select. Let me see. Let me enable my my tray here. Give me a second. Or let me just select. Oh, it's space. Good to know. Let's get in here and select one of our light sources. I just want to make these less bright. Let's see if we can do that right away. Nah, let's keep it like that. I hope you see that our light has changed a little bit. We see it even better in the reflection here. And keep in mind that you can use these IES lights to add additional detail to your light cones, to your light emission itself, which, as we've established in the beginning, is our ultimate goal, to make a beautiful, interesting visualization. It's all about detail, and these lights just help you add more detail to your scene and to your visualization. Josh, what's next? Oh, yeah, no, sorry, scenes, am I right?
Yep, scenes are next. All right. So by default, if you don't have any SketchUp scenes set up inside your project, it's just going to take the scene that you're already on, or the view that you're already on, inside of other different design applications, say Revit, for instance, or Rhino. any views that you already have created are instantly going to be able to be seen by Enscape as well. And what's really cool is you can jump between the different views, and Enscape will simply follow along as well. So yeah, you can jump between any different view, and again, the Enscape view is going to follow along as well. What's also really cool too is, say, I know in other design applications it might be kind of hard to find that right view in there. So what you can do as well is you can access these views through the view management tab inside the Enscape window. And again, you can start clicking any one of them and it's going to take you to those different ones as well. But what's also really cool is you can create different SketchUp scenes or any other host design applications native views through Enscape. So if you hit this view management tab at the top here, and down at the bottom, let's say I like this view right here, all I have to do is hit create view, call the view what I need to. We can see there's this link visual presets button. We won't get into this yet, but we'll get into this a little bit later when we talk about visual settings. We can see we can save the camera position. And also, this is good to note as well, Enscape by default will take whatever host design application's sun settings are for the different scenes. So in this case, SketchUp, we have the different scenes set up, and they have different times of day set up in the SketchUp shadow settings. So when you jump between those different scenes, those shadow settings will update. Well, if we are scrubbing through the time of day inside of Enscape and we want to save, we know we get the sun setting how we want, and we want to save that, what you can do is hit the save Enscape sun position inside this view, and that'll overwrite that host design application's sun setting. So now anytime you jump between those inside the Enscape view management tab, they will be updated for you. And we can see once I hit create, it's going to create a new SketchUp scene for me. And I can just go update scene thumbnail as well. So that's really cool. It's this nice bi-directional link. I can create scenes in SketchUp or other design applications and have them translate over, and vice versa as well. So that's a little bit about SketchUp scene, or that's a little bit about scenes inside of Enscape and how they play with the host design applications. Yeah.
Can I interrupt you for a second there? I know you're going to show, I think, visual settings next, and then we're going to get to our exports and still image rendering. And then I want to show the audience the panorama export and how to generate a QR code and how to scan a QR code. I thought maybe I could just start the panorama now because it's going to take a little bit to be rendered. Maybe everyone can just watch me start the panorama here, and later on you're going to be able to watch this very panorama by scanning a QR code. So you can get ready if you want, just so you've seen it, the button to generate a panorama, and you'll find that once Josh goes into more detail there as well, most of the exports are just pressing a button, so we can choose mono or stereo panorama here. I'm just going to go with mono panorama. Stereo allows you to perceive depth when you use something like a Google Cardboard, for example, so a mobile phone based VR experience. Never mind, you'll see that it's now exporting the panorama. It was just a click of a button, and we're going to check out what it looks like once Josh is done with the next topic.
All right. Yeah, really looking forward to seeing that when it's done. All right, so we're going to talk about visual settings. So before we get ready to produce our rendering, we have this visual settings tab up in the top corner of the Enscape window. It's a little icon with an eye. So now what this is going to do is give you the ability to change the whole look and feel of the Enscape window. So we won't get super detailed into this. We'll just cover some of the main things here. We have different options to control the different camera settings, so exposures, field of view as well. So this is really cool, where you can get a nice field of view to really kind of set up a nice shot on how you want. You can adjust the depth of field as well too. So really cool to be able to fine tune what's in focus and what's not in focus as well. Really to kind of help add a little bit more realism to the final image as well. You have the ability to add some outlines as well. A couple different style modes: white mode, polystyro mode, light view mode as well. So a lot of different cool options here as well to really fine tune how that final image is going to look. Have some different image enhancing features like saturation, contrast, color temperature, those types of things. Atmosphere tabs controlling the overall illumination of the scene, sun brightness, night sky brightness, wind intensity as well. And then our sky tab, this is where we can control the overall cloud system. So we can control the density of the clouds, control the variety of them, cirrus amount as well. We just have a lot of different control over how we want those clouds to look. And then for the horizon line as well too, we have a couple different options to control what's being seen in the horizon line. So Enscape comes with a couple different ones: desert, forest, mountains, those types of things. Or you can also load in your own custom background images if you would like. A lot of free websites out there where you can download those. We won't get into this today, but for now, we'll just use some that come with Enscape. And then for the output tab, this is where you're going to set the output resolution for your final renderings. And you can also export some different material maps as well for further compositing inside of, say, Photoshop, for instance, object ID, material, depth, and alpha channel. One button before we do produce the final image is the show safe frame button. This is a button I really like to have checked to make sure my final image is going to give me exactly what I want to show. And one cool thing is this is dynamically updating as well. So if we go to custom and I type in a different value, we can see my crop regions updated instantaneously there for me as well. So now if I'm ready to export my first still image, all I have to do is hit the screenshot button, tell it where I would like to save, and let it render for a second. Again, one of the big benefits of Enscape being a real-time rendering engine is you're always looking at what that final result's going to look like anyway. So this is literally just going to do a screenshot of the screen, and there the rendering is done. So we can see exactly what that final image looks like. So we can see here's my real-time rendered image. Here's my still image as well. We also have the ability to do batch rendering. So this is where you can batch render any different SketchUp scene that you have set up inside your project or that you've created with Enscape as well. Real quick on the visual settings, I mentioned this as well. If you go inside of the visual settings tab and click the little arrow on the far left corner, this is where you can create different presets as well. So you can set up different looks and feels for each individual view and then assign those to the different views that we've created as well.
This is also where I've reset everything to the default settings in the beginning by right-clicking that setting and choosing reset to default.
Yep. And then also any values that you have inside of those, there's a little undo icon right next to the number. So if you click that, it just resets it as well. And also all these settings you can export as well and import as well.
Really
all right,
cool.
Kai.
Yep. So yeah, my panorama actually finished rendering ages ago. So that was really fast. Yeah. So now it didn't ask me where to save that panorama. You have seen in Josh's presentation right now when he rendered an image, it asked him where to save it. It doesn't do that when rendering a panorama. Instead, we can find our panoramas by going to the upload management, which we can find here. There we go, open on the second screen. And once again, this is going to be the same in all of your design applications, so that's not SketchUp specific. And by clicking this upload management button here, Enscape will open this window, and it's going to load the panoramas. And by the way, also web standalones. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a second, but it's going to open our panorama overview. And it allows us to manage these panoramas. That means we can do various things. We can upload them to the Enscape cloud. We can also save them as a regular image if we want to, but we can upload them to the Enscape cloud. We can then view them in the browser directly. We can share them using a link or a QR code, which we're going to check out in a second. And we could even stitch them to a panorama gallery or even a panorama tour where you can see where the next panorama is and you can click through it. That's a little too much for today, but once again, I promised you a QR code. So I'm going to upload the panorama to the cloud by clicking, this little cloud button. I clicked too early, but I hope you saw it. If not, it was here. Now there is a remove from cloud button. But most importantly, if we click these three dots, we can see that QR code. So if you want to scan it, you can do that right away. If you allow access to your gyro sensor, which is what you're going to be asked when opening this link, then you can even tilt and rotate your phone in your hands and use it like a screen, like a window into this visualization. So that's pretty cool. And of course, we could just copy the link or open this in a web browser and so on. Lots of cool ways to share these panoramas. And if you imagine to make a general rendering like Josh did it a second ago, and just add the QR code into one corner, for example. So anyone who wants to get the full picture, the full perspective kind of can always just scan it and view everything using their phone. So that's a really cool and fast way to communicate a design. Another cool and fast way to communicate a design is to create a video, right, Josh?
Exactly. So let's take a look at how we can do this. So now if we want to create a nice video shot kind of going across the pond here, so what we can do is let's start over here, and I'm going to click this video editor icon in the top corner here. So now let's say, we want to start from here and just kind of do a nice shot across. So what we're going to do is simply hit the play button in the far right hand corner, the little plus button, and we're just going to navigate over to where we want to go next. Let's say something right about here. And all we have to do is hit the plus button again, saying we're going from here to here. We can adjust the total duration as well. If I want this to be, say like 20 seconds, all I have to do is hit the preview button as well. And I'm going to get a nice preview of what this animation is going to look like here. At any time, I can stop the preview, make changes to it if I want, keep adding more keyframes as well to this as well. Really nice shots for being able to go from here to here, to here if I want. Now let's say I want to add in some more keyframes. So if I move away real quick, I can see what my video path is looking like. And let's say I want to kind of have a shot kind of coming up a little bit. If I hover over my little path here, I can see a camera icon. So I'm going to click that. Now what I'm going to do is let's raise this up a little bit, and we can see another keyframe was added as well. Another really cool thing that we just updated is the ability to keyframe the last keyframe. So now if I want, I can say this is going to be, say, 30 seconds. There we go. And I can click update. We can also do some really interesting things as well with this and do, say, a nice time lapse as well. So let's say I want to have it go from morning to nighttime. What I can do is key the time of day here. So let's say it's going to be, say, 4 a.m. here. I can click update, go to my middle keyframe. This one is going to be, say, 1 p.m. Click update as well. And then for my last one, what we're going to do is we're going to say this one is going to be, say 7 p.m. There we go. Click update. And also notice down here on my timeliner, we can see things that are being keyed as well. So now what I'm going to do is just click preview. I'm going to get a nice preview of what this animation is going to look like here. Perfect. So we can see the clouds are moving, shadows are moving, really getting that nice time of day shot that I'm looking for here. And again, I can speed this up, slow it down. Also notice on the left-hand corner here, I have ease in and ease out. So this is going to go kind of ease into the next keyframe and ease out of that next keyframe into the next one. I can also do shaky cam if I want, give it a nice shaky cam effect, but I like the nice ease in, ease out effect.
You're going to show them how fast it renders?
Yeah, I can do that. So now once we are ready, all I have to do is hit the export option, set the output resolution for our final rendering here. And I'm going to do is click export. So I'm going to click export, save it where I would like. And here we go. So now it's going to start rendering for me. So now it's starting to render for me.
Cool. Nice. And while Josh's video is rendering, I'm going to talk a little bit about standalones. So we've explored a lot of really cool ways to share your design with an image, with a 360-degree panorama, even with a video. Another great way to share your entire Enscape experience actually is by using a standalone file. We have two types of standalones on Windows. That's exe standalones and web standalones. Web standalones, you can select them here. Once again, like we've covered before, it's just clicking that single button. And then Enscape is going to upload a graphically simplified version of your Enscape experience to run in your browser. So it's going to upload that to the Enscape cloud, and you can manage it in the same uploads management. This one here that we've covered before. So that is one option. An even better option is the exe standalone file. However, this exe standalone has the same system requirements as Enscape itself, because it's a perfect copy, actually, of Enscape. Once again, to create it, it's just one single click, this exe standalone button here. And just to reiterate that, it will create one single file that contains the entire Enscape experience as you see it here. Whoever opens it can change the daytime, can navigate through the scene, but can, of course, no longer change anything about the scene because it's no longer synchronized from SketchUp. It's a standalone file. However, this can be used with no restrictions forever, without additional license necessary. So you can totally, for example, have a dedicated presentation machine that might even be virtual reality capable, and we're going to talk about that in a short time as well. So that way you could, have your architects, for example, your designers, create a visualization and then export them as an exe file and run it on your presentation machine or on your powerful laptop that you take to the customer, or send it to the customer if they have a machine that meets the Enscape system requirements, or even upload it to your website, for example. Before we click this button and see how easy that is, let me just talk briefly about customization. We've mentioned that in the beginning. You can actually choose your own icon that will represent that file, that exe file. So if you have your company logo icon, for example, you can totally use that. You can use your own loading screen. Let me see if I have something in my downloads that works well. Maybe this one, for example. And you can also add a watermark. I don't think I'm going to add one right now because I don't have a really fitting one. Actually, I do. I have this blue one, so we can take that. You can see you can position it somewhere. It's a little too big though, so I'm going to disable it, but you can position where you want it to be. And if you have an image, a PNG file here with transparency, it also supports transparency, so you can get creative with this overlay. However, we've changed our loading screen, so let me just click this exe standalone export, and we're just gonna export this to our desktop, click save, and it's gonna create our file, and that's all we have to do, nothing more. Yeah, exactly, that file, and we're gonna open it in a second, is let's see where we are. Yeah, is the same quality as Enscape. We have a couple of settings in there. And it is VR compatible. When I'm talking about VR, in this case, I have my my Meta Quest 3 here that I can put on. We also support the HTC Vive Pro 2 as a headset. It does have to be connected to your computer, so the computer has the graphics processing power, and you can stream that to your headset either via cable or via Airlink in case of the Quest 3. And Enscape is VR capable both as a plugin, so both when it's connected to SketchUp and as that standalone file as well. And that's really interesting. For this case, I'm gonna show it in the standalone file. That's what I thought, or that's what I thought would be interesting. But just so you know, if I opened or if I viewed VR while connected to SketchUp or to any other design application, of course, I could perform any changes I want, and I'll see those changes pop up in VR. So you can have a viewer, you can have a customer maybe viewing your scene in virtual reality, and they can ask you to perform changes, and you can perform those changes in your existing work environment with your existing workflows, and they'll see those changes pop up in front of their eyes in virtual reality, which is really, really powerful. You should try it. But this time I'm going to show it on the standalone that I've just created, so I'm not going to be able to perform any live changes. Just so you know, it is possible. It's totally up to you. I'm going to take off my headphones here for a second and put on my headset because I still need to connect it via Airlink with my laptop. So let me just do that real quick. There we go. All right, and now that I'm connected with my computer via my Airlink, let me put Enscape, the standalone we've created, into full screen. And what we have to do now is to go to settings over here choose devices, and enable virtual reality, and that will get me in VR right away into Enscape. And I can start navigating around. Let's change to seated mode since I'm sitting right now, and we can teleport around. You should see on the screen what I'm seeing. I'm seeing this in beautiful clarity. I can change the daytime. I can check individual views that I might have saved in the file. I can take an image and save that for later, and all of that in this standalone file that runs without any additional license or anything necessary. We can enable white mode, etc. But yeah, it's mostly, or the main use case is to explore the scene, look around, and when you're not running in a standalone exe file, and if you're connected to SketchUp or your design application, then you'll be able to perform changes right away, and you can see those changes appear right away in virtual reality as well. So that's a really short overview, or a really short look at standalones and the virtual reality capabilities. Yeah, let me just check the content. Where are we? Yeah, that's our overview of the basic functionality of Enscape. We've tried to cover everything. We hope it wasn't too fast. Of course, we have plenty of educational content, most notably our basic training tutorials that work with this project here, that you can explore to learn everything in your own pace and in detail. But we also want to talk a little bit about the recent developments and the release of Enscape 4.0. Josh, do you want to take it away?
Yep. Let's do that here. Okay. All right. So Enscape 4.0 was released on March 27th. One of the biggest features that we did was align the operating systems. So for Mac and Windows, now they share 95% of the same experience. The other 5% is hardware limitations on the Mac computer. But all the features that you see inside of, or 95% of the features that you see inside the Windows version are now on the Mac version as well. So it's one unified code base now. So this is going to allow for more agile and faster feature development for both of the operating systems. Some other cool things that we've done are enhanced vegetation and people assets, which we'll look at in a second here. And then some of the other things, again, we're going to get into the smoother and cleaner visuals powered by the NVIDIA Relax technology for smoother denoising, Raytraced artificial lights, beta for sharper and more precise shadows, new sleeker UI like we've seen on Kai and I's computers already. And some other things that we've done are support for Rhino 8.3. So now we support that. The Intel Arc Series GPUs, like I said, now we support MetaQuest 3 and HTC Vive Pro. So that were some of the new updates that came with Enscape 4.0. So looks like next up we have assets. So let's talk some assets. So with each new release of Enscape, we're going to get new assets. So in this new release, we have 32 new and unique people assets. We have 178 new animated vegetation assets as well. These are more region specific. So really cool to be able to introduce these. Here's some very nice still renderings that our lovely 3Rs team has created for us about some of our new assets as well. And we will look at what all of these can look like, or at least what a couple of them are and where they can be found inside of the Enscape window. So here we go. Let's go place these. Now what we can do here is, let me just reset my visual settings. We don't want my depth of field on while I'm showing this. So here we can start placing some assets. So you can place them one of two ways. You can place them inside of SketchUp again, or inside the Enscape window. The first time that you install the new update, you will see, and launch the asset library, you will see there's a new tag that will show the new assets. Obviously, I've been working on this since it's been released, so they will not show new for me anymore, but I can show you where these are. So we can see here some of the new ones here. What you can do is there's a couple of variants for them. So you can pick the different variant and you can click and place wherever you would like as well. So we'll just place a couple of them and we'll see what these look like for us as well. I know there's a really cool one called the Joshua tree. How fitting for me. Here we go. So we'll find this as well. Here's one of the other ones. So we'll quickly place this as well. Boom, up in place. I'll find my Joshua tree here. There we go. Here is my Joshua tree. Perfect. Now, once these are placed, you can hit apply changes. And you will see what these changes look like inside the Enscape window. And best of all, this will push back inside of your host design application. So in this case, SketchUp. What we can see here is these new assets and what they look like. See, they are animated as well, just like our Enscape vegetation assets are. So that was some of the new assets. We also have new people as well. So definitely, if you haven't installed the new version, check those out and explore them as well. All right, Kai.
Cool. Yeah, one more really important addition, or something that's groundbreaking actually, with Enscape 4.0 are artificial ray traced artificial lights. With one of our latest, or with one of our previous releases, we've introduced artificial sun shadows, or ray traced natural lights, or ray traced sun shadows, which means that lighting, let's summarize it, lighting behaves correctly with the light rays being simulated, and depending on how far a light source is from an object, it's gonna get blurrier and that kind of thing. It's a really cool feature, but it wasn't available for artificial lights. So artificial lights would look like this. Let's see. Here is a nice example. So you would have these really sharp cones, kind of, and you had shadows, but they could be a little pixelated. They could be a little unsharp. And overall, it was a nice experience, but it could be better. Here you can see a really good example of some pixely shadows. Now, with the latest Enscape release, with Enscape 4.0, and with hardware accelerated graphics, so if your graphics card is RTX capable, this is unfortunately not available on Mac due to hardware limitations, but if you have an RTX capable graphics card, you can open the general settings window over here. And as you see, the ray traced artificial lights, there is a beta behind it, so it's just a beta release. It can still be a little faulty, but if you can check this box, enable it, and you'll see the difference right away. We have way more natural shadows. We don't have these really locally blocked kind of cones or anything. In general, we have just way more realistic and interesting and detailed shadows that way. So that summarizes it quite well. I think I could show you examples for the rest of the day, but we have a live Q&A that we have to cover. So the last topic we want to talk about is Global Illumination Denoiser for exports, which, if I'm not mistaken, Josh, is something that was already available in the Enscape live walkthrough, but is now also available for videos and still images and panoramas. Am I right?
Correct. Yep. So it's utilizing the latest NVIDIA Relax Denoiser. It's going to allow for significantly improved image quality, elevating the overall appeal and realism of the Enscape renderings. So like you said, you're going to get better detail in those kind of darker areas for more enhanced images. So you're going to get that inside of mono panoramas, still images, stereo panoramas, videos, and VR as well. It's going to really affect those enclosed interior spaces with minimal direct light, particularly on glossy and metallic surfaces. So we can see here's an example of before and after. Here's a bigger image. So this is before and this is after. So we can see what that's doing there as well.
Cool. All right.
All right.
With that, I believe we've covered everything we wanted to cover in this short introduction to Enscape, and with that, we'll go over to the live Q&A. We'll turn off our webcams, and we'll be ready to answer your questions. So feel free to start typing them in the chat, and yeah, let's see what you got.
All right, thanks everybody.
See you there.